Gabz FM power to engage your world. We are on the alternative view now, that part of the arena where we take an hour thrashing out at a topic. We get to the depth of it with an expert panel that we have in studio or on the line. Today, our Wednesday, our alternative view and our quest for investigating what molds this society we call Botswana. We continue our social politics this Wednesday by looking at those who mold our children, our future generation. We're looking at co-parenting. Those in today's society, family structures have changed, and because of their parents' work, so they are no longer primary caregivers for their children. This means limited time, limited contact time, limited influence that our children acquire from their parents. So therefore, they acquire different behaviors and parenting philosophies from those that they've spent time with. Research in 2005 published in the Journal of Childhood Research indicated that 58% of children under the age of 3 in the region spend 30 to 70 hours a week with domestic workers. We look at the alternative view of these hired mothers, these hired parents, and we see how they influence our children and how well their philosophies synergize with those of the birth parents. To have this conversation with us, we have in studio Ashley Thaba. She is a parenting specialist. She is the founder and the, I think, administrator of the Facebook page Mom to Mom Parenting Consultations. Welcome to Gabz FM, Ashley.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
But to bring you into the conversation, Ashley, when you have a baby, when you are a mother and you're expectant and you're about to have a baby, nobody really gives you the moment that you have a baby, nobody gives you a manual and says, this is how you're going to do it. Yeah. This is the steps that you're going to take to it. How do parents navigate between these styles that Menswarang has just given us?
Well, actually, I think about 5 years ago, I got so many people that were calling, asking that very question, like, can you prepare me for childbirth? I mean, not for the birth itself, but for having a child. That I started teaching prenatal classes and started having consultations, because you did find that I think maybe in the older age, their mothers would kind of come in and come underneath them. But now you don't have that generational wisdom being passed down. And so nowadays, they have to seek people like myself and maybe this lady. I'm not sure. I don't know what this lady does on the phone. But basically, you probably have to seek some of that out. You probably have to do some research. But some of it just comes with your natural instinct. I think we're born to be, when God gives you a child, he gives you some natural instincts that you know. And we have to choose whether we're going to listen to those or whether we're going to do what pleases ourselves. Because I think sometimes that you should be spending more time with your kid, but then you want to go out and work and have fun. And it's hard to be a parent sometimes. And so sometimes it's easier just to ignore those maternal or paternal instincts in the quest of your own personal success.
All right. Now, because as you say, when we talk about parenting styles, especially, it is not just between the mother and because we have so many different influences. Now we are now, because of these different influences and different lifestyles and the fact that we are bringing different people into our spaces. Do we really have those people that do we ever sit down, in your experience as mothers and as parents, do we ever sit down with the people that we bring into our homes and say, you know what, this is my parenting style, this is how I want my children to be influenced, this is the kind of television, let's just go there, this is the time of television I want, or this is the amount of time or television, is it a loosey-goosey type of arrangement?
Yeah, I think some parents with good intentions might actually sit down with their helper. But the question is, how can they actually enforce that? Because they're not there. Like I do have a helper. She doesn't come. She only comes part-time 3 times a week. But even just this morning when I left, my kids had made a mess. And so she was about to go clean it. And I said, no, don't clean it. I want them to clean it. But I'm also well aware that it is easier for her to clean it herself than for her to sit there and make the kids clean it. And so then what's going to end up happening is, I happen to be at home more often than maybe more parents because my schedule is more flexible. But the typical kid is going to learn, if we just wait, then Auntie will do it for us. Yeah. And then there learns the sense of entitlement and laziness. So I don't think that it's necessarily parents aren't talking to their spouse. I mean, they're helpers. Some might be doing that. But the question is your helper going to be motivated to put in the extra work to train your kids. And most are probably not, especially for the pay that they're getting. They'd probably just rather do their job and be done than now have to do the job of parenting your child as well.
We continue with this conversation as we wait for your phone calls. Ashley, when you have conversations with parents, because you do parenting consultations, the parents that readily come to you, do they have an idea, first of all, of the kind of children? Before they ask you, how do I parent? Do they have an idea of the kind of children they want to bring up and how those children in the long run are going to be?
I think everybody has an idea that they want a good child, a great child. I don't think anyone goes out and goes, I think I want a bad child. So, and especially anyone who's coming to seek me for consultations is someone who's actually trying to put an effort into their parenting. Now, one thing I don't know, and something I encourage in a lot of my consultations, is to really think in detail. What kind of child do you want to raise? And then work backwards. What do you need to do to get that? If you want a child that's going to be independent, then what do you need to get that? Is the best way to grow an independent child is to have the nanny and you do all the work for the kid as they're growing up? Or is it that you're going to have to give them some chores in the house? So, or if you want a child that, can express themselves, how do you start here? So a lot of times I think parents do have an idea of what they want their child to look like, but what they haven't really thought is thought backwards to think, okay, if I want my kid to look like this, what do I need to start doing today to build that character? Because it's not going to magically appear at 21 unless I started it at 2, 1 even, early on.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the issue of the permissive parent versus the
authoritative, yes.
Yes, and I think a lot of times as
parents now, from when I deal with parents and talking to different parents, one of the things is they didn't like to be beaten or to be given chores. So now they actually do think that they're maybe doing their children a favor by not making them work as hard or allowing them to have some of the privileges they did not have growing up. But I think what they're failing to understand is some of those things that they went through actually shaped a lot of who they became. Instead of, I think they think back as a kid, I didn't like when my mom didn't let me, get whatever I wanted or made me wake up early in the morning and do chores, whatever. So I'm not going to do that to my kids because I didn't like it. But I think sometimes we have to really look back, and this is kind of like what my colleague is saying on the other line, and understand the ramifications of our actions. And sometimes I think they underestimate some of those hard lessons they learned from their parents are actually what shaped them and made them the hard workers that they've become today. And they're actually, in their attempt to kind of give their kids an easier life than they had, they actually are creating this monstrous society that we have now where youth are so entitled that they work a day and they're like, this is too hard. I'd rather be unemployed than work, know? But those are things that we put in them when we did them the favor of not putting them through the hardships that we went through as kids.
Are you ready? Gabz FM, power to engage your world. Don't worry about it. Check it out, y'all.
Gabz FM, power to engage your world, and we continue with the conversation. We are talking about molding a Botswana that we want to live in, and we are putting parenting as part of the influences of that Botswana that we want to live in. How do we parent our children? How do we co-parent with those that come into our homes? Before we do that, do we ourselves as parents have a parenting style, and do we realize that the philosophy behind parenting and what kind of adults it leads to? Ashley, now, how do we parent? Let me get this. He is speaking about discipline, that we have moved away from disciplining children because we believe it's harsh. And he's giving examples of the times that were very turbulent in our societies, where we had youngsters going out at night, attacking people, and communities taking it upon themselves to stand up and ensure that that doesn't happen again. And he says now with the new parenting is that we believe that you don't touch a child or you don't discipline a child because our children have just all of a sudden become too fragile. Gabz FM, you're live.
So I just wanted to speak to, I think, like 2 comments back. Yes. Because you first asked a question about what can we do. Yes. And then there was a man that talked about discipline. And so there's been back-to-back calls, so I haven't had a chance to speak to that. Yes. I think one of the simplest and easiest things and what we can do moving forward, going back to your earlier question, is spending time with our children. And it's really simple, and yet it makes such a profound difference in our children's life when we actually just give them the time. And so because of time, I won't go too much in detail on that unless we have the time. But I want to speak also on the discipline issue. I think one of the things that needs to be taught is the difference between discipline and beating, because they're very different. One is done out of love and with a desire to shape behavior. So the child is very clear on, I am being disciplined for this action because my mother desires this action. So I'm getting an unpleasant response because my mom is trying to, or my mom or my dad, it doesn't matter, my parents. He was talking about mom, so it made me think about mothers, trying to shape me into this way. But beating is, I'm just angry and I'm going to just take a stick and start hitting you. And that is where we get some of the problems with self-esteem or whatever. But when a child is disciplined, even if they're spanked, going back to that second thing, but it's done in control and in love, and it's an unpleasant consequence, which they are expecting. Like, let me give you an example. My children know that if they are disobedient to me, they will get 2 spankings. It is not a beating, and I'm not angry. I don't raise my voice. It is very clear, and they know ahead of time. So what will happen is I will say, okay, take your plate to the sink. Let's just say, I'm giving a simple example. And, they said, no, I'm going to go play. Whatever. I said, did you hear me? I said, take your plate to the sink. No, I said, okay, you are choosing disobedience. Is that a choice you want to make right now? Because you know the consequence of that choice. Now, 90% of the time, they'll get that plate and take it to the sink. But there'll be 10% of the time where they test me. And I take a stick and say, okay, let's go to the kitchen and let's get your 2 spankings. And so it's not in anger. I'm not mad. I don't raise my voice. But because they know this is the behavior I'm trying to shape, and I'm just giving that as an example, I'm not saying that's everyday occurrence.
Consequence.
Then it's not something it actually creates boundaries in my home. It creates order in my home, and it creates peace in the home. That's what discipline does. Now, beating is I just start taking a stick and I said, get that thing. I start losing my temper. I start screaming, and then it creates fear and it creates chaos in the home. So I think that's something that we need to establish is the difference between discipline and losing your temper.
And there's no lesson learned. My grandmother used to say she's hitting the sin out of you. She'd say, you've done 1, 2, 3, so we're going to make sure that this sin runs away and never comes back. So you know that you're not being hit. The sin is being hit, so it could leave
And children
your body.
actually, with control, actually respond well to that because children actually enjoy boundaries. Study after study show that children are happier and healthier in a family and in a home where there are clear-cut boundaries, where they know they can't be the mom because their little brains aren't ready to be in control of the house. And so we don't need to let them be in control of the house.
All right. With that absolutely bombshell, we are coming to the end of our program and our discussion. Today, we were talking about shaping the Botswana that we want by making sure that we parent right from the onset. In studio with me, I had Ashley Thaba. She is a parenting specialist. Check out her Facebook page, Mom to Mom Parenting Consultations, and that is what she does. And she can be there to help you if you're one of those parents that don't know how to take the step going forward. And we had Me Puluko Ntwarang, senior lecturer from the University of Botswana. We have lost her a little bit earlier on. Me Ashley, it's your time to say goodbye.
Goodbye. And one other thing, you can check out the Facebook at Mom to Mom. That's MOM. I think the British spell it MUM. And also you can go to YouTube, Ashley Thaba, and you can find more parenting interviews that I've done with other radios and TV stations on these topics.
All right. Thank you so much for gracing the Purple Studio. Thank you
welcome.
for your insights. I hope we will have you back here as we continue having these conversations, trying to shape a bigger, better Botswana. Let me take this caller. I'm giving you 30 seconds, caller. Thank you and welcome to Gabz FM, the arena.